Welcome. Today, we're diving into a really profound insight from Dr. Hussamuddin al-Zawawi's book, The Lantern of the Wise. Now, this is a piece of deep Islamic philosophy, and it presents a concept that completely reframes how we think about belief, not as just some idea we agree with, but as an essential part of our very being. So we're zeroing in on contemplation number 6, which is called The Divine Likeness Within. This fits into the book's first station, which is all about the dawn of belief, and its first reflection, which really gets into the nitty-gritty of what belief even is. All right, let's kick things off with a big question. When you hear the word belief, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's kind of like a mental checklist, right? You've got a list of doctrines, and you either check the agree box or you don't. It's binary. It's all happening up in your head. But this is where the book really flips that whole idea on its head. It argues that belief isn't just some mental subscription, where you click agree to the terms and conditions and you're in. No, instead, it's an existential current. Think about that. A deep, lived connection, like a river current that's always carrying you back to your origin. Okay, so this idea of an existential current brings us to the core concept here, divine likeness. But hold on, before we go any further, we have to tackle the biggest misunderstanding right out of the gate. When you hear that phrase, you might picture some kind of physical resemblance, maybe like the art of Michelangelo, suggesting we're supposed to literally look like God. The book steps in right away to say, nope, that's not it at all. It makes it crystal clear that this likeness has nothing to do with physical form or contour. It's all about essence, and this is the key, conscious capacity. The important thing isn't what we look like, but what we have the potential to become. So let's break that down. What does divine likeness actually mean in this context? It's the human potential to reflect divine attributes, things like mercy, wisdom, justice, compassion. The idea is that we are created with the capacity for these incredible qualities, and belief is what helps us unlock and activate that potential. And the book gives us this beautiful analogy to really get our heads around this. Think of a mirror. When it reflects the sun, the mirror doesn't become the sun, right? It can't create its own light, but it has this unique, incredible ability to reflect the sun's light. In this view, we are those mirrors. So, if we're mirrors, then how do we actually do the reflecting? Well, the book identifies 4 of our human faculties as the tools for this job, but it reframes them not as just biological functions, but as sacred divine trusts. And this is where things get really amazing. From this perspective, your sight isn't just about seeing. It's the tool for perceiving the signs of the Creator all around you. Your hearing isn't just processing sound, it's your ability to respond to truth. Your will becomes the faculty for choosing surrender. And your speech, it's the very means by which you call upon the divine. All of a sudden, these everyday things we do are transformed into these profound spiritual acts. And here's a really critical point. The author stresses that these faculties are not powers that we own. They are a borrowed breath of volition. I love that phrase. They're a temporary gift entrusted to us. And what that means is they aren't ours to just do whatever we want with. It means there's accountability. This Quranic verse really drives that responsibility home. The author explains that the wise person doesn't get arrogant about these gifts. Instead, they tremble in divine entrustment. Imagine a king hands you a priceless, flawless diamond. You wouldn't just strut around showing it off like it's yours, right? No, you'd tremble with the sheer responsibility of not dropping it. That's the feeling here. Now, when you start to really live with this sense of divine entrustment, it leads to what the book calls the treasure, a huge realization that completely shifts your entire experience of reality. So, what does that feel like? This analogy is just so powerful. Belief stops being a scaffold for the intellect, something rigid, external, and frankly exhausting to keep climbing and maintaining. Instead, it becomes a sanctuary for the heart, a safe, internal place of rest, of security, of true belonging. And this is the great realization. So much of the spiritual journey is framed as this long, hard search for a distant God, like we're on the outside trying to get in. But the shift is realizing the connection was never broken. You were always perpetually gazed upon. The search isn't to find something that's lost, but to awaken to what's already there. So what does all this mean for you and me in our day-to-day lives? Why does it matter? Well, this next part brings it all home, turning this deep philosophy into a very personal, actionable challenge of stewardship. So let's make this real. Think about those moments of sudden intuition, or that feeling of deep empathy for someone, or that quiet sense of inner knowing.
We've all felt these things. And usually, we just chalk it up to our personality, right? Oh, I just have good instincts. But the book asks us to stop and consider, what if these aren't just our traits, but reflections of that divine trust working within us?
And that leads us to the final, really profound question this contemplation leaves us with. It asks us to think about this directly. How can you take these inner gifts, your intuition, your empathy, your wisdom, and consciously direct them? Not for your own ego or for worldly gain, but as a form of worship, as a way to recognize their ultimate source. How do you go from just existing to living in a state of humble, purposeful reflection? That's the challenge to take with you.